Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Success Coaching International and Know Your Rights Group with another very important live video update tonight. So it's been just over 2 weeks since Trump resumed office as president, and he is continuing to make some serious waves right around the entire world with his new policies. Now, we actually went through a very comprehensive list of all the changes that Trump has made since taking back office on Tuesday night's radio show. But even since then, he just keeps kicking ass and taking names. It is fantastic to see. So just today, he signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from women's sports, which is something that people around the whole world have been calling for quite a bit lately, and especially, of course, since the Paris Olympics. So this is one of the many articles that's doing the rounds. Trump signs executive order intended to bar transgender athletes from girls and women's sports. US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order intended to ban transgender athletes from participating in girls and women's sports. The order, titled Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports, gives federal agencies, including the Justice and Education Departments, wide latitude to ensure entities that receive federal funding abide by Title IX in alignment with the Trump administration's view, which interprets sex as the gender someone was assigned at birth. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over, Trump said at a signing ceremony. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said the order upholds the promise of Title IX and will require immediate action, including enforcement actions against schools and athletic associations that deny women single-sex sports and single-sex locker rooms. The timing of the order coincided with National Girls and Women's in Sports Day and is the latest in a string of executive actions from Trump aimed at transgender people. The order also calls for private sporting bodies to meet at the White House so the president can hear in person the stories of female athletes who have suffered lifelong injuries, who have been silenced and forced to shower with men and compete with men on athletic fields across the country. So really shocking stuff. So fantastic to see that Trump has finally put his foot down and his pen and made some huge changes there. Now, the other big news from this week is of course the fact that RFK Jr.'s health secretary nomination has progressed even further, which once again is fantastic news. So again, this is a little bit longer article, but again, they raise some important points, and they're the ones that I want to address as I go through this. So it is entitled, Senate Panel Advances RFK Jr.'s Nomination to be Health Secretary. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. cleared a key hurdle Tuesday after a Senate panel voted to advance his nomination to be Health and Human Services Secretary to the full chamber. In a 14-13 vote along party lines, the Senate Finance Committee pushed through Kennedy's nomination after he managed to allay concerns raised by Senator Bill Cassidy. Cassidy, a doctor, was the one potential swing vote on the panel. Last week, he signaled that he held serious reservations over whether Kennedy was qualified to lead the vast agency, saying he was struggling with his decision after questioning him at 2 confirmation hearings. In addition to the Finance Committee, Cassidy serves as chair of the Health, Education, Labour and Pensions Committee. In a statement posted on X just before Tuesday's vote, Cassidy said he had very intense conversations with Kennedy and the White House over the weekend, specifically thanking Vice President J.D. Vance for his honest counsel. Cassidy told the full Senate after the vote that he received a series of promises from Kennedy, a long-time anti-vaccine activist, including that he would maintain the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee on immunisation practices, and that he would not remove statements on the CDC's website noting that vaccines do not cause autism. So obviously he's had to make a couple of compromises in order to be able to get into the position of power that he needs to be to make some real changes. So unfortunately, as I'm sure many of you out there know, that in life these are the compromises, these are the choices and decisions that sometimes we have to make. Now, where it gets interesting, it goes on, it says, last week, Cassidy had said he needed to hear an unequivocal statement from Kennedy that vaccines do not cause autism, and indicated he would listen to well-established science on the matter. It was still unclear Tuesday whether Kennedy had made that assertion. So on one hand, he's saying he has to hear this statement, and then they're saying, well, Kennedy didn't actually make that statement, yet this guy's already crossed the floor and voted for him. So very interesting. Minutes before the committee's vote, Trump attempted to provide a boost to Kennedy on Truth Social. 20 years ago, autism in children was 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 34. Wow, something's really wrong. We need Bobby. Thank you, DJT. Autism diagnoses have risen from about 1 in 150 children in 2000 to 1 in 36 currently. So in just 25 years, they've gone from 1 in 150 to 1 in 36. That is an insane increase. Though researchers have pointed to increased screening and changing identifications of the condition as at least some of the basis for that rise. Advocates have called for more research into whether other factors have contributed to the rise. I wonder what those other factors could be. At one of Kennedy's confirmation hearings last week, Cassidy acknowledged that his phone was being blown up by Kennedy's tremendous following, many of whom the senator said trust you more than they trust their own physician. Now that is a huge statement. That is a very, very significant statement. I mean, where else in the world do you hear of people trusting a politician more than their own doctor? Well, it certainly doesn't happen here in Australia, I can tell you that for sure. But again, that could change. That could change if we could just simply find somebody with the means and the influence and, of course, that testicular fortitude that is required to stand up against the current system. Surely there has to be someone out there that fits that bill. Fingers crossed, let's keep hoping the election isn't far away. Now, I have seen some comments on some of these videos from people asking, why do I refer to these US articles and what's going on over there rather than just focusing on Australia? And that is for two very important reasons. So firstly, is of course Australia's very close ties to the US. For example, as we explain in our live events, the ATO is actually just an agent for the IRS, and we're currently in the process of actually obtaining documentation proving that through various FOI requests. And secondly, of course, is the fact that the US is such a big world leader and such a superpower, okay, that other countries do indeed follow their lead. And in fact, one of the latest countries to follow is, of course, Argentina, who have also decided, like Italy, to withdraw from the World Health Organization. So if you haven't seen this article yet, I urge you to have a look at this. And of course, as always, print these out, write a letter to your Member of Parliament and ask them to do the same here. So, Argentina to follow US in withdrawing from World Health Organization. Argentina's president has ordered the country's withdrawal from the World Health Organization due to profound differences with the UN agency, a presidential spokesperson said this morning. President Javier Milei's decision echoes that of his ally, US President Donald Trump, who began the process of pulling the US out of WHO with an executive order on his first day back in office in January 21. The loss of another member country will further fracture cooperation in global health. Oh no, what a shame. How did we survive for all those thousands of years without the WHO? Oh. Argentina's decision is based on profound differences in health management, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, spokesperson Manuel Adorni told a news conference in Buenos Aires. He said WHO guidelines at the time led to the largest shutdown in the history of mankind. Argentina will not allow an international organisation to intervene in its sovereignty and much less in our health, he added. Hallelujah. Someone who's speaking some common sense. WHO has no authority to compel countries to take specific health actions, and the organisation's guidelines and recommendations, including in health crises like COVID-19, are often disregarded. Milei was a sharp critic of the lockdown imposed by former President Alberto Fernandez during the pandemic, asserting that it hurt the economy and the government used it as a mechanism of repression. I wonder who else did that. Long live freedom, Milei said on Wednesday in a post on X criticising the UN agency. Argentina does not receive WHO funding for health management, and the president's decision doesn't affect the quality of health services, Adorni said. On the contrary, it gives greater flexibility to implement policies adapted to the context of interests that Argentina requires. Imagine that. Imagine making policies that are actually applied to the people in your country, not what some big global organisation says. What a radical thought. Last year, Milei's government refused to sign an agreement to manage pandemics within the WHO framework on the grounds that doing so could affect national sovereignty. Why don't we have the same thing here? Okay, this is the question we need to be asking. So, Albanese, if you are watching this, I'm going to spell it out for you very, very clearly and very, very concisely because I know you're a little bit slow, mate. Here it is. If you want any chance of winning the next election, the upcoming election, you must start by withdrawing Australia from the WHO as your very next move, and then you need to continue making moves in alignment with what Donald Trump is doing in the US. That is your only chance of winning. So mark this day, mark this time. You've been warned. Either do so and have some chance or ignore what I'm saying at your peril. I will leave it with you, Albo. All right, now, just before we leave the US completely this week, I want to share another interesting article that details just how many Americans now want to give up their electric vehicles and go back to normal cars. Now, just pay very close attention to the statistics and figures that are mentioned regarding Australia. So this is the article. As I said, it is out of the US, but it does apply here as well. Almost half of American EV owners want to switch back to gas-powered vehicles. The verdict is in. A significant share of Americans who own an electric vehicle have buyer's remorse, according to a 2024 poll. McKinsey & Co.'s Mobility Consumer Pulse, before 2025 began, found that 46% of EV owners in the US said they were very likely to switch back to owning a gas-powered vehicle in their next purchase. The high percentage of Americans who want to make a switch even surprised the consulting firm. I didn't expect that, the head of McKinsey's Centre for Future Mobility, Philip Kampshoff, told Automotive News. I thought once an EV buyer, always an EV buyer. In the poll of nearly 37,000 consumers worldwide, Australia was the only country with a greater percentage, 49%, of EV owners than the US, who said that they were ready to return to owning an internal combustion engine. The biggest reasons EV owners cited for wanting to return to owning a gas-powered vehicle was the lack of available charging infrastructure, 35%, the total cost of owning an EV was too high, 34%, and nearly 1 in 3, 32%, said their driving patterns on long-distance trips were affected too much due to having an EV. So, yeah, wow. It is very, very clear that Aussies, even more so than Americans, are simply not interested in electric vehicles. So hopefully the many, many points that I've raised on a number of these video updates over the past year or so have finally started to sink in, and people are paying attention and they're acting accordingly. Now, of course, all we need to do is get the politicians on board so that they stop pushing their ridiculous and completely unattainable EV agenda on us all. Now, speaking of agendas, the cashless agenda is once again in full swing. And whilst we did have a small reprieve for a little while, it does seem like more bank branches are in fact closing again. And of course, people are up in arms about it. So this is another interesting article that I urge people to pay attention to. It is entitled Backlash as People First Bank Announces More Than a Dozen Branch Closures. An Australian bank has announced the closure of multiple branches across the country, sparking an angry backlash from the union. People First Bank, really? Seems like a strange name right now, announced the permanent closure of 18 branches, including 11 Heritage Bank branches and 7 People's Choice branches from 4 p.m. on April the 4th. Are they really the People's Choice branches or not, though? That's the question. The bank said the decision to close the branches was in response to changing customer needs and their increasing preference for digital banking. Heritage Bank and People's Choice merged under People's First Bank in March 2023 and as of that year boasted more than 730,000 customers, 2,000 employees and $23.3 billion in total assets. We know the important role branches play in local communities, so these decisions are only made after careful consideration, Chief Customer Officer Maria Ann Camilleri said. Careful consideration of what, though? The bank's bottom line? Because I'm guessing that's what it is. While these decisions are challenging, we need to prioritise the services our customers use most. This means reallocating people and resources to higher demand areas, such as our 24/7 contact centre, and investing in technology to meet customers' need for simple, convenient digital banking. Why can't they keep branches open and invest in technology and have a 24/7 centre as well? Why can't they have it all? I mean, really? We will support everyone affected with care and understanding. Well, that doesn't really help you much when the branch is closed, does it? All the care and understanding in the world ain't going to make any difference. Okay, so that's just, usual media waffle. Finance Sector Union National Assistant Secretary Jason Hall told the Courier Mail the bank was putting last the people they claimed to put first. Exactly. These aren't the first branch cuts of 2025, but they are the largest, he said. It also really plumbs the depths of irony for a bank calling itself People First to start their new brand by slashing branches and staff. Exactly. As a customer-owned bank, we deeply value every customer and are committed to helping them transition to a nearby branch or other banking options while working to minimise the impact of this change. Well, clearly they don't deeply value every customer because there's 730,000 of them and they're up in arms, or certainly a large portion of them are. So again, it's just complete contradictory nonsense. For the overwhelming majority who bank digitally, this change will have little to no impact. For the small number of customers who use the affected branches, we have a range of options available so they can continue to bank with us. I'm somehow going to doubt that one. I don't think they're going to continue banking with you at all, and I certainly hope that they don't. So, look, as always, the people that make the most noise get heard. So if you or anyone you know is an affected customer, be sure to be very vocal about these changes. And even if you were perhaps considering becoming a customer of one of those banks, you could write to the CEO or the Chief Customer Officer, whatever the hell that means, and of course let them know your thoughts. Again, we did it previously with the CBA. Everyone got up in arms when they wanted to start charging people to do cash transactions over the counter. They put that on hold because there was enough backlash. So if there's enough backlash to this too, we can bring about change. All right, so the last article that I want to go through tonight is actually something that I covered on Tuesday night's radio show. But listen, it is so important and it is so time sensitive that I am going to cover it very quickly again here tonight. So this is very, very important because there's actual action that you can take to do something about this. So it says, looming money overhaul spells danger for cash users. here's what you can do. In an era where the tap of a card often replaces the clink of coins, the Australian government is considering a significant shift that could impact the way we use money. The government proposed a new law requiring certain businesses to accept cash payments. The proposed law, which could take effect early next year, was a response to the growing trend of businesses going cashless. Now, we've spoken about this on previous videos. While digital payments offer convenience and speed, they also raise concerns about accessibility. According to the government, 1.5 million Australians still use cash for 80% of their transactions. So as I posed on Tuesday night, I wonder how many million Australians use cash for 60% or 50% or 40% of their transactions still. There's a hell of a lot of Aussies still using cash, and we want to continue doing so. The government's discussion paper released last year showed the types of businesses that should continue accepting cash. The list mostly contained essential services like groceries, medical care and pet services, among others. The consultation period for the proposed law will end on Friday, the 14th of February. That is next Friday, people. So we have 1.5 weeks, not even 1.5 weeks, 1 week and 1 day. That's all the time we've got. And encourage the public to share their thoughts and input about the legislation as soon as possible. So if they are encouraging us, okay, to share our thoughts and inputs, then the least we can do is oblige them and give them our thoughts and input. So this could be a pivotal moment for Aussies, especially seniors and rural residents who prefer to rely on cash payments. You may send your thoughts about the proposed law via email at cashacceptanceconsultation@treasury.gov.au. I'll say it again, cashacceptanceconsultation@treasury.gov.au on or before 14 February. Concerned citizens may also send their submissions via mail to this address, and then there's a mailing address there. The cashless revolution has been convenient for some, but it should not leave anyone behind. Whether it's due to a lack of trust in digital transactions, difficulty in accessing technology, or simply because of preference, cash options remain significant for a substantial portion of the population. Now, to make it as simple as possible for people to provide their input, to put their submissions in, we've put a link to this article, okay, in the comment section. If you're watching this on Facebook, okay, you'll find that link in the comment section, and you can scroll down to the bottom. You can find a link to the email address and the postal address. Now, if you're watching this on Facebook or on BitChute, please just type that into whatever your preferred search engine is, and this article will come up. Scroll to the bottom and you can find those links and get those submissions in. Very, very important. And remember, you've only got until next Friday, the 14th, Valentine's Day, to make sure that you get those through. So please, as always, do be proactive and do be sure to get those in. Now, of course, if you are one of our podcast members, and again, you'll find a link to that membership in the comment section as well. You'll also find a link in the radio show notes that are included as part of your podcast membership. You find links to all the articles, including that one that we read out on Tuesday. And please, on that point, do remember it costs less than $5 a week to join up as a monthly member, and less than $4 a week. It's less than a cup of coffee, okay? And you can join up as an annual member, and you get access to all 405 of our past podcasts from the past 10 years. All the music's edited out. You get copies of our notes that we write up for each show. You get a copy of the transcript for most shows. You get copies of all of those articles. It is an absolute no-brainer for anyone who's serious about learning about their rights. So do be sure to join up as a podcast member. Now, speaking of our radio show, we did officially announce on this week's show, on Tuesday night's show, all of the dates for our live events for this year, 2025. Now, as a very, very super quick overview, you can find all the details online, but super, super quick. We have 6 full-day webinars. Again, there's a link going in the comment section directly to those, but that's where we'll be covering just 1 or 2 topics for an entire day. So it'll enable us to go into a lot more detail on those specific topics than we've ever been able to do before. And as always, lots more time for questions from all the attendees. We've also got 2 of our standard 2.5 day live events. We did say last year we weren't going to do any more live events this year due to the costs. We had a barrage of emails, people saying, please, 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 we love to come to the live events. We love to mix and mingle with other like-minded people. So we've capitulated. We've decided to do 2 events. So there's one in Melbourne in April, and then there'll be one on the Gold Coast in July. And again, of course, those will be fully updated for 2025 as well. And then finally, due to overwhelming popularity and success of our previous boot camp events, we have decided to run 2 boot camp events this year. Previously, it's only been 1 per year, and that's it. So again, we've got 1 boot camp on the Gold Coast in October and 1 boot camp in Melbourne in November. And that, of course, is the culmination of everything we teach. It's a lot more interactive. You get to ask us any and every question that you might have. We have a dinner, sit-down dinner, where you get to mix and mingle with the other attendees, and of course with the presenters. We have pre-dinner drinks. It's all included. It's a fantastic event, and anyone who's attended those before will know how great they are. Now, to ensure that anyone and everyone, okay, who wants to learn the important information that we cover at these various live events is able to do so without any barriers, we are currently running a very special 20% off early bird discount. So if you secure your tickets to any of those events, whether it's the webinar, the live events, the bootcamp, whatever it is, before midnight on Tuesday, the 18th of February, that's our next live show in just under 2 weeks. If you just simply enter the words early bird into the coupon code box that comes up on the checkout page, you can get those tickets at a further 20% discount. But again, it's only until midnight on Tuesday, the 18th of February. So you can find out more about all of those events and, of course, secure your tickets via the various links on our seminar page. And again, you'll find a link in the comments, but also in the description of this video, wherever you may be watching. All right, so finally, as I always do, I'm going to finish off with the latest feedback from one of our members, and I'm also going to go through some of the latest memes for everyone as well. Now, this one's actually quite detailed, but it's very, very interesting because it refers to multiple people. So this person's asked to be to have his name withheld, and he's written this into the Aussie Speeding Fines guys. They pass it on, obviously, to us. It says, thanks for your help with this latest matter. I sent off my first parking notice of objection on that matter today. I will follow the process, but it will possibly go to court. I've been using your processes not only in my own matters, but also assisting others with court matters using the same methodology with much success. These are the fines I have been involved in or know that have been to court. Number 1, mobile phone fine, camera detected young driver. Pleaded personal circumstances to the court, completed safe driver's course, result dismissed, no fine, no points. Turn right against red arrow, L plate under instruction. Parents supported the young driver in court, the result stern warning, no fine, no points, no loss of licence. Park in taxi zone, ridiculous and opportunistic revenue raising tactic by a local council parking officer where the driver was in the car, engine running, waiting in the taxi zone for a driver in front of the taxi zone to vacate a parking spot. Result, dismissed. Park in private car park. First letter of objection sent. It went back and forth a few times. I said no contract. They sent a kind letter to say they would waive it this time. End of matter. And then the final one, driver exceeded points. Driver took matter to court to extend the use of vehicle on the road for 12 months. In that matter, they did engage a lawyer in local court and pleaded adverse personal circumstances to the court. Magistrate gave mercy, let off with conditions. Whilst there have been successes, there are processes you can complete that will help you get off fines and penalties. These can include doing safe driver courses and conducting yourself appropriately in court. Be respectful and organised, and be firm in what you are trying to achieve in court. Always great advice. The attached letter from police prosecutors refers to my COVID fine. It took over 3 years to get through the court system due to COVID delays, with as many as 5 mentions from memory. When required to, I would turn up at court dressed for business, be polite to the magistrate and court attendants, and say as little as possible. In the end, the matter was resolved after I sent representations to the police prosecutor. Case withdrawn. Feel free to share this, but please respect my privacy. So everything's blacked out there, so it's all completely private, but there is the absolute proof, once again, that when you stand your ground and keep fighting, even if it takes 3 years, it will get withdrawn or dismissed. So here's his letter. Good morning, Sergeant such and such. Please find attached representations to police in my case, blah, 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 for your consideration. I thank you for thank you for your time in considering these representations. If you require further information, please contact me at email, blah, 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 blah. Their response, dear Mr. Such and Such, I can confide that your representations have been considered and the matter will be withdrawn. I'll send an email to blah, blah, blah local court to have the matter relisted to a date either this week or next week to formally withdraw the matter at court. Subject to the wishes of the court, I do not believe you'll need to attend for this to happen. I'll email you again shortly upon notifying the court. So again, 100% proof from the prosecution, okay, that when you stand your ground, when you fight back against these fines, okay, use that Aussie speeding fines book, use that tried, tested and proven 3-step process. Okay, use all the other information in the book if you do need to go to court, and you can get these fines withdrawn or dismissed. It absolutely does work, but you need to stand your ground and keep pushing despite all of the pushback. All right, so some memes to get people thinking. This is obviously directly in line with what I said right at the start of tonight's video. And as it says there, if he's got this much done in 2 weeks, imagine what's going to happen in 4 years. Okay, and it's exactly the same thing as we've said. You know, if we're still getting COVID fines withdrawn 3 years after the fact, as we always said they would be, imagine what you can do with all other types of fines. They can all be very easily beaten. Yes, I mean, look, this isn't happening too much anymore, but it is an important reminder. Should they try and bring in some other form of pandemic again this year? If you still need a booster after being fully vaxxed, still need to get tested after being fully vaxxed, still need to wear a mask after being fully vaxxed, and still get hospitalised after being fully vaxxed, it's probably high time you admit that you've been fully conned. So again, all in line with what we've been saying with regards to RFK Jr. and the like. Now, thankfully, this is no longer relevant in the US. Unfortunately, it is still very, very relevant right here in Australia. Again, until somebody stands up and fights back against this insanity. So there you can see him. I'm woke now. Don't need this little thing called my brain anymore. And sadly, it is still in full swing here in Australia. So fingers crossed we find someone who can do the same thing here as Trump is doing in the US. And then finally, as you know, I've read out a lot of stories about all these increasing fines and, you know, speeding fines and parking fines and talking on mobile phone fines and all the rest of it. And of course, all these fines, all they do is generate more revenue. They have little to nothing to do with actual road safety. But what, of course, does have a lot to do with road safety is, of course, the quality of our roads. Okay, and so this meme's been doing the rounds. You can see the depth of the potholes in the roads, and I'm sure, sadly, most of you who are watching this video are aware of situations like that in your area, because the state of the roads around this country is absolutely horrendous, and they need to start directing some of that money that they keep getting off people who pay their fines, directing that into making the actual roads safer, rather than, of course, just buying more cameras to raise more cash. All right, so I am going to leave things there for tonight. As always, I do urge you to make use of all the various resources that are available to you to please get informed, get fired up, and get proactive. We do need that again this year more than ever, especially in regards to that cashless agenda that I mentioned just before. Videos, of course, as I said before, are completely free to watch. You find them in the videos tab on our Facebook page, on our BitChute channel, and of course on our YouTube channel as well. Those radio shows completely free to listen to every second Tuesday night. If you miss a live show or you want to refresh on a previous show, you can join up as a podcast member. If you want to go above and beyond that, please do be sure to grab our Know Your Rights book, the essential step-by-step manual for understanding and exercising your rights. A whole heap of topics there, many of which people have never even heard of before. Of course, that tried, tested and proven Aussie speeding fines book, these guys are in their 18th year now, so you absolutely know that their information and strategies work. And of course, we know a lot of people are struggling financially at the moment, so please stop throwing good money after bad at these unsecured loans, your credit cards, your personal loans. Again, use that tried, tested and proven 4-step process for discharging any unsecured loans. Okay, you can just write letters and they get written off. It's a very, very straightforward process. So, as always, there's links in the description. You can get these books individually. You can get them as part of the combo pack. We do, of course, have the tote bag as a little bonus included at no extra charge. We've got some warm weather continuing around much of the country, so do, of course, be sure to order your Know Your Rights cap. People see the logo, they come up, have a chat. Great way to meet like-minded people. One of the new products that have been very, very popular is that Court Success Pack. Okay, it has the affidavit and submissions, the 100 or so documents on there that you can copy and paste all of your details into and use all of the arguments. And a lot of those arguments, of course, come from the FOI responses from the government and, of course, from those Constitution Commission reports. So it is a fantastic pack that is going to give you the absolute best chance of succeeding in court if you end up going down that path. And then finally, as I said, we do have all of our webinars and live events locked in for this year. If you still can't make it for whatever reason, or you want to get a preview of what we're going to cover, do be sure, of course, to grab our home study course. It is a complete recording of one of those 2.5-day events. There's 17 DVDs, a CD with all the documents we use ourselves, 3 custom-made workbooks, spaces there to write notes next to every single slide from every single presentation. It is a brilliant resource that you'll come back to again and again and again over the years. Again, you'll find links in the description and comments for that. So I'm going to leave things there. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Do, of course, be sure to get those submissions in regards to that cashless agenda. Other than that, we will talk to you all again next Thursday night.